What happens when a black community advocate stands up to a powerful white judge only to collapse in the middle of the courtroom? What follows stuns everyone and flips the justice system on its head. You ever done something so small, so decent, it felt like brushing a speck of dust off God's shoulder? That kind of moment that doesn't get applause, but still feels right down in the soul? That was me. Tuesday morning, sharp 8:15, courthouse steps slick with dew and old gum, sun barely waking up. And there she was, white woman, crisp gray suit, carrying a latte like it was evidence. She drops a manila folder, papers scatter like scared birds, contracts, legal stuff. Important, she doesn't notice or doesn't care. So I do what my mama raised me to do. I pick them up, neat, 2 hands. Press the corners back down like I was handling church programs. I hustle up beside her. "Ma'am," I say, calm as Sunday radio. "You dropped these." She grabs them without a glance. Doesn't thank me, doesn't nod. Just snatches and keeps it moving like I was a coat rack with arms. Cool. I've been called worse than invisible. I wasn't there for her anyway. I was there for Mr. Cho, old Korean vet from my block, served in Nam, built his house brick by brick back in '79. Now they trying to take it over a 3-inch zoning violation from a ramp he needs to get into his own damn home. City calls it non-compliant architecture. I call it what it is. A fancy excuse to push another elderly man out and build luxury condos. He didn't have money for a lawyer, but he had me. I've been studying law at night, working with the legal clinic down on Baker Street during the day. I came to testify, to read the affidavits, show his medical records, and, God help me, stand up like a man ought to when folks come for the wrong person. Inside, the courthouse smelled like bleach, bureaucracy, and broken promises. Security gave me the usual once-over, the long one, like they were searching for the nerve it took for me to walk in here dressed in dignity and brown skin. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I was raised polite, and a clenched jaw don't get you through metal detectors any faster. Room 2B. That's where it all went sideways. I sat down on one of them splintery benches they call furniture. My folder sat on my lap like a sacred object. I ran my thumb across the edge, steady. My tie was crooked, my back straight. I was ready. Then he came in. Judge Harland Vincent. You ever seen a man who looked allergic to joy? That was him. White hair ironed flat like he slept under a dictionary. Glasses perched like they judged you before he did. Lips pursed like every breath he took cost him pride. He didn't glance my way, just called the case number and name like he was reading off a deli ticket. "Sutter," he said, dry as chalk. "You're here on behalf of the defendant?" "Yes, Your Honor," I replied, standing. "I'm a community legal advocate, here to provide sworn testimony and supporting documentation." He raised an eyebrow like I'd just told him I was the tooth fairy. A legal advocate, how novel. He looked around the room, smirking. "And what sort of credential allows you to parade around court like an attorney?" I held his stare, even, calm. "I work with licensed attorneys at the Baker Street Clinic. I've assisted on over 30 cases, including filings, documentation, and preparing clients for hearings." He leaned back, crossed his arms. "So you've read a few pamphlets and now you think you're Clarence Darrow?" There it was, that tone, that slow, simmering spit of disrespect dressed in courtroom robes. I felt the blood rush to my ears, but I didn't blink. "No, sir," I said evenly. "I'm not an attorney, nor do I pretend to be one. I'm here because my neighbor's rights are being violated, and I've come to speak the truth under oath." He scoffed, loud, deliberate, like the room needed to hear his contempt echo. "This court," he said, "is not a stage for civic theater. We do not require neighborhood activists to weigh in on legal matters." He turned to the clerk, waved a hand. "We'll entertain the testimony for what it's worth, but let's not pretend this is Harvard Law Review." The gallery chuckled, some quiet, some not. And I stood there, hands on the rail like I was back on a lunch counter in '63. Let me tell you something. Humiliation doesn't feel like fire. It feels like ice. Like someone scraping frostbite across your pride with a butter knife. I took a breath. Deep, steady. Then the dizziness hit. Fast. The floor began to slant, but nothing was moving. My heart galloped behind my ribs like a wild horse trying to break free. My hands trembled. I gripped the rail tighter. My vision blurred. Faces melted into colors. Someone called my name, but it sounded like it was coming from inside a cave. Next thing I knew, everything folded. Darkness came, clean and sudden. Just like that, the man who came in with truth and patience dropped to the floor like a curtain call. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this story unfolds. Stay with me, because the courtroom wasn't ready for what came after. When I came to, it wasn't peaceful. You ever wake up flat on your back with a tube in your nose, a flashlight in your eyes, and a crowd of people standing over you like you're the halftime show? That's what I opened my eyes to. Fluorescent lights above, voices echoing off marble like I was laid out in a tomb, not a courthouse. A paramedic with a mustache from 1982 leaned down, asked me how many fingers he was holding up. I told him I didn't come here to count fingers. I came to speak. He didn't laugh. Fine by me. I wasn't joking. I sat up slow. Every part of me protested like I owed it rent. And there, just behind the sea of blue uniforms and nosy onlookers, stood her, the woman from earlier. Gray pantsuit, papers, no smile, no frown, just watching. But this time she had a badge out, not security, not police. Federal Observer. Name tag read Amelia Hunt. That name would matter later. She stepped forward, quiet but firm, like a librarian with a badge. "Mr. Sutter, you were publicly humiliated under oath," she said. "We're reviewing footage." "Footage?" She pointed upward. One of those little black courtroom security cams hidden in the corner like a cockroach with a hard drive. Turns out my fall wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a record. By the time I was steady enough to stand, my ears started catching the courtroom whispers. And let me tell you, nothing spreads faster than a judge's slip-up with a federal badge in the room. Back in courtroom 2B, the energy had shifted. You could feel it in the way folks sat straighter. The clerk avoided eye contact. Even the court reporter's fingers looked nervous. But the one who looked most rattled, Judge Harlan Vincent. When I walked back in, he tried to act unfazed, sat there with his little hammer like he was still running the show. But his eyes, those gave him away. They darted once to Amelia, then back to me, then straight ahead like we weren't even breathing the same air. I took my place at the witness stand again. This time with water, a paramedic still lingering near the door, and a whole courtroom hanging on every move. He cleared his throat. "If the witness feels able to continue," he muttered. I leaned into the mic. Calm. Slow. "I didn't come here to faint, Your Honor," I said. "I came here to speak truth." And the crowd, folks in the back, other cases waiting, even the bailiff, got real still. I started in. I told them about Mr. Cho, not just his military record, but the nights I saw him sit on that porch with his late wife, counting coins to pay taxes on land he already owned. I explained how the city ordinance he supposedly violated was updated 2 months after he installed his ramp. I read the part in the code where it clearly stated, "No retroactive enforcement shall apply to existing structures." Read it slow, so nobody missed a word. Judge Vincent tried to interrupt. "Mr. Sutter, we're not here to—" I didn't raise my voice, just kept going. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the law is the matter at hand." That's when the murmurs started. The kind you don't stop once they start. Lawyers shifting in their chairs, clerks pretending to look busy. Amelia never moved, just stared at that bench like it owed her an apology. Vincent leaned back in his seat, lips pressed so tight they disappeared. He asked for the city's representative. A man in a navy suit shuffled forward like he forgot how knees worked. "Do you contest the testimony provided?" the judge asked. The man cleared his throat, checked his papers like they were going to save him. "No, Your Honor. The document is accurate." Boom. That's the sound of a lie crumbling. Now let's be clear, that judge wasn't ready to fold just yet. Pride is a stubborn beast, but even pride knows when to tuck tail when the room turns. And the room had turned. He banged his gavel once, said we'd reconvene after review. But nobody missed how quick he left that bench. No posturing, no parting shots. Just vanished into chambers, like the walls might protect him from accountability. As I walked out, folks reached for me. Not to gawk, to thank me. A young woman with a baby whispered, "My landlord's doing the same thing to my mama." A man in a veteran cap saluted. No joke, just a nod, 2 fingers to the brim, and a look that said, "About damn time." But I wasn't smiling yet. This wasn't justice. This was just the truth finally getting enough volume to be heard. This is the climax. Everything you've waited for is right here. Stay with me, because what happens next? Oh, they weren't ready for that. They say the courtroom is where justice lives, but I've learned justice shows up late, don't knock, and only enters if somebody forces the damn door open. 3 days passed after my collapse and testimony. 3 long days of silence. The kind of silence that don't feel empty. It feels loaded, like something's waiting to drop and you're the one standing underneath it. Then came the call. The clerk's voice on the phone was dry toast. "Ruling scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Attendance optional." Optional? They always say that when they hope you won't show. But I did. Oh, I showed up wearing the same brown suit, pressed this time, and a calm that only comes when you've already risked everything in front of strangers and came back standing. When I stepped into courtroom 2B, you'd think it was a different place. Gone were the chuckles, the sideways looks. No one dared say a word. Even the temperature felt different, like the walls knew something had shifted. Mr. Cho was there too, in his wheelchair, navy blazer, a quiet dignity in the way his hands folded, like a man who fought too many wars to be scared of this one. Judge Harland Vincent walked in 5 minutes late. That man looked like he hadn't slept in days, skin a little dull, posture not so tall. Pride, now that was missing entirely. He sat, adjusted his robe, and cleared his throat like swallowing gravel. "This court," he began, voice low, "has reviewed all submitted testimony and legal documentation. It acknowledges the oversight in ordinance application and accordingly grants immediate dismissal of the complaint against Mr. Cho. No build-up, no theater, just truth." Mr. Cho didn't react, didn't shout, didn't cheer, just nodded once and whispered, "Finally," like he was releasing a breath he'd been holding since the last century. But Judge Vincent wasn't done. He looked directly at me, and that stare? It wasn't angry. It was haunted, like a man seeing a mirror after years of walking past it. "There will be a review of courtroom conduct," he said, "including my own." He paused, long enough for it to matter. "I owe this court an apology." That right there, that was heavier than the ruling, because it wasn't just about me. It was about every man who got side-eyed at a courthouse, every woman ignored at a hearing, every neighbor who fought City Hall and got buried under paper and procedure. I stood, didn't say a word. Just stood there while the court adjourned and Judge Vincent walked out without a gavel slam. He didn't need one. Silence did the job. Outside, the air had that rare kind of bite, like the weather itself had been holding its breath. Reporters gathered. I ignored them. Amelia Hunt, the Federal Observer, met my eyes with a nod. That woman never smiled, but respect don't always come dressed in grins. Mr. Cho wheeled up beside me. "You didn't have to do all that," he said. I looked at him, shook my head. "Yeah, I did. Because sometimes the system doesn't change with fire and shouting. Sometimes it shifts because someone refused to sit down, then stood up again after hitting the floor." Later that week, I went back to the clinic. Nothing fancy. Same buzzing light, same broken copier. But when I walked in, the whole room paused. Not for long, just long enough to let me know they saw me different now. Not as a volunteer, not as a helper, but as a man who stood in the middle of a storm, held his ground, and made the storm back up. Justice didn't ride in on a white horse. It stumbled in, clumsy and late. But it came. And it left footprints. So yeah, maybe I wasn't a lawyer. But that day, the law finally listened. And I didn't need a degree for that. This is the final chapter of this story. But it's not the end. Because stories like this don't end. They ripple. You felt that? Then carry it forward.